Good evening, and welcome to the June 8th, 2023 meeting of the Municipality of Anchorage Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Ella McKay.
Here.
Dave Hale.
Here.
Dale Smythe.
Here.
Skylar Quinn.
Here.
Andrew Romerdahl.
Here.
Brian Flynn.
Here.
Jackie Sabina.
Is absent.
Thank you. You have a quorum.
Thank you. First order of business are the minutes. We have minutes from Thursday, May 11th, 2023. May I have a positive motion, please? Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Mr. Hale. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, is there any objection to the minutes, the motion? If there's no objection, then the motion passes and the minutes are approved. Next order of business is the special order of business disclosures. Do we have any disclosures? Somebody absent?
I do have a disclosure. I was absent from the meeting for case number 2023-0033,
And we'll be abstaining from...
and I will be abstaining from voting.
Okay, thank you. Any other? The other one was Jackie. Okay. Next up is the consent agenda. And on the consent agenda, we have a resolution for approval, resolution 2023-006. Can I have a positive motion, please? Moved by Mr. Quinn, seconded by Mr. Smythe. Does anyone want to remove this item for further discussion? Seeing none, is there any objection to approval? Seeing none, the consent agenda is approved. Next, parents' requests. We don't have any. Nothing in the unfinished business, nothing on the regular agenda, which brings us to public hearings. All of the public hearings up for this evening are variance hearings. And for a variance hearing, the procedure by which the public may speak to the board at this meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on the public hearing items, the chair will ask for the applicant to state their case. The applicant, including all of his or her representative, has 10 minutes for presentation and may reserve time for rebuttal at the end of the public hearing. Throughout the proceedings, the burden of proof rests upon the applicant, who must convince the board by a preponderance of evidence that the variance should be granted. A concurring vote of a majority of the fully constituted membership of the board, minus those excused by conflict of interest, shall be required to grant a variance. For a variance to be granted, all 8 standards must be substantially met. On conclusion of the applicant's presentation, the board members and the staff may then direct questions to the applicant through the chair. The chair will then open the hearing to public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in rules of procedure. Representative of groups such as community councils and PTAs have 5 minutes and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Time is kept by the secretary. The display at the front will be green to within 1 minute of the time allowed, then will turn yellow. At this time, you should sum up your testimony, and at the end of the allowed time, the light will turn red and a tone will sound. Any individual may have appeal rights related to any action the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals takes. The parties have 30 days from the date of mailing or other distribution of the decision to file an appeal to Superior Court. Okay, so first case is case 2023-0042. Petitioner is John Emmy. Is the petitioner or his representative in the audience? Thank you. Will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. On April 17th, 2023, a total of 128 public hearing notices were mailed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 21-03-020H. One public comment was received, and the Chugach Community Council did not provide comments regarding this case.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the sufficiency of notice in this case? Seeing and hearing none, will the staff please present the case?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Emmy is requesting a dimensional variance from AMC Table 2110-6, Table of Dimensional Standards, Chugach Eagle River Residential Districts, to allow an existing single-family residence, two-place hangar, and accessory dwelling unit to encroach 6.5 feet into the front setback, 15 feet into the rear setback, and 3.9 feet into the side setback. In 2002, the property owner acquired a non-conforming determination regarding a detached hangar. The detached hangar was encroaching 13.1 feet into the rear setback. It was determined the location of the hangar predated zoning and therefore established legal non-conforming rights. The as-built at this time showed a single-family structure with a detached hangar. Over the last 21 years since establishing non-conforming rights, the property owner has added on to the existing single-family structure and replaced the detached hangar. None of these changes are documented by a building permit, land use permit, or an updated survey. During research to sell the property in 2022, a new as-built was generated to verify the location of the structure, given the additions to the single-family residence, a two-place hangar and accessory dwelling unit. This as-built showed that additions to the existing structure and replacement of the hangar since 2002 had intensified the encroachment into the rear setback, in addition to now encroaching into the front and side setbacks. The property is bordered on the east property line by a right-of-way, Graybill Street, that dead ends partially into the property. A past platting action from 1985 vacated a portion of Graybill Street abutting this property that crossed the airstrip. Comments from this case recommended construction of a cul-de-sac with this vacation. However, at the time, the platting action was involved in a legal case hindering the construction of the cul-de-sac and vacation of the additional right-of-way on abutting properties. A new platting action was brought forward in 1993 to finalize the abutting property's vacation of Graybill Street. At that time, staff analysis deemed a cul-de-sac at the northern end of Graybill Street was not necessary and therefore not constructed. In order for the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals to approve the variance, the application must state with particularity the relief sought and must specify the facts or circumstances that are alleged to show that the application substantially meets the following 8 standards. Standard 8 is partially met. There are no streams, wetlands, or slopes that are applicable to this property, and the surrounding land in the same zoning district. However, this property is in a regular shape, with the north 50 feet being dedicated by easement to the active private airstrip. This property is also bordered on the east property line by a right-of-way, Graybill Street, that dead ends partially into the property without a cul-de-sac or vehicle turnaround. Standard B is not met. The physical circumstances of the code do not create a hardship upon the property owner or deprive the applicant of rights commonly enjoyed by other properties in the same district. The current lot size is 48,177 square feet, 28,177 square feet larger than what is required by a code for a single-family dwelling, and 8,177 square feet larger than what is required by code for a two-family dwelling. The usable area of the lot is reduced by the 50-foot open area easement, active private airstrip, located along the northwest boundary of the parcel by approximately 13,850 square feet, leaving 34,327 square feet. The use of creative design to incorporate the unique characteristics and shape of this lot should still have allowed the applicant to construct a single-family residence, accessory dwelling unit, and two-place hangar outside of the setbacks. There are no records of building permits, land use permits acquired for the additions to the existing structure shown on the 2022 as-built. Standard C is not met. The hardship is self-imposed, and the conditions and circumstances are a result of the applicant. The current property owner acquired a non-conforming determination in December of 2002 for the existing detached hangar encroaching 13.1 feet into the rear setback. Additional encroachments were constructed without acquiring a building permit, land use permit by the owner, creating a structure out of compliance with current code. Title 21 requires any alterations to existing structures with non-conforming rights to decrease the non-conformity. Any additions to structures may not intensify the non-conformity. The updated as-built, dated January 20th, 2023, shows that alterations to the existing structure have intensified the nonconformity and added additional encroachments. The reference to this portion of code is located on sheet 4 of the staff packet under Standard C. Standard D is met. These structures have existed in this location since 2006. According to aerial imagery, there have been no complaints from the adjacent property owners to date regarding this encroachment. According to the as-built, the asphalt apron of the hangar does encroach into the adjacent property Lot 6. Lot 6 is currently a vacant parcel. Standard E is met. The variance does not change the character of the zoning district or the intent of the code. Single-family residences with an accessory dwelling unit and a two-place hangar are permitted in this zoning district. Standard F is met. These encroachments within the front, rear, and side setbacks have no known impacts on the health, safety, or welfare of the people of the municipality to date. Standard G is met. This standard is not applicable to a single-family residence. Standard H is not met. The minimum variance that would have made possible a reasonable use of this land was granted by the non-conforming determination in 2002 of the 13.1 feet into the rear setback. The property owner did not acquire the required land use permits and use a surveyor prior to the construction of these additions. Therefore, these additions resulted in intensifying this encroachment into the rear setback and in the process created encroachments into the front and side setback. The rear nonconformity could have been maintained by code, allowing a reasonable use of the land. There were no objections to this variance from any of the reviewing agencies starting on page 25 of the staff packet. There were advisory comments from MOA on-site on page 30 of the staff packet regarding the existing system being undersized and the missing location of the standpipes on the as-built due to the survey being done when they were covered with snow. So verification of their location and if they need to be repaired. The department finds that standards A, B, C, and H are not met or partially met, and standards D, E, F, and G are met. Therefore, the department must recommend denial of the variance. If after a public hearing the board finds that all 8 standards are substantially met, then the approval should be subject to conditions 1 and 2 found on page 6 of the staff packet. I can answer any questions that the board may have, and the petitioner's representative is in attendance.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by the board? I have a question. So should we add as a condition of approval the advisory comments from MOA on-site? I mean, about the septic system and the location of the standpipes?
Madam Chair, you could if you'd like to. It was just a suggestion. It wasn't in the staff report on page 30, it was just a notation. It wasn't a you have to type thing.
Okay.
But I'm assuming they're going to have to do a COSA if they sell this property, so that will kind of, as Chairman Hale's shaking his head, and Quinn probably knows this too, they will be required to do a COSA.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions of staff by the applicant? Would the applicant please come forward? And turn on your mic there.
It's the little green square right there in this dead center. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, oh, gotcha. Mark Sylvia with Rhodey Architects. I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, so since you're there, please come forward, state and spell your name.
Mark, M-A-R-K, Sylvia, S-I-L-V-I-A.
And please present your case.
I actually have no additional comments to add at this time.
So you have 9 minutes and 58 seconds of rebuttal time. Are there any questions of the applicant by the board members? Mr. Hale.
To the chair. I read through all of this, and it's a particular issue when people come to us and they haven't gone for permits or anything. It makes it a tough situation for everybody. You got to meet all 8 of these requirements. There's several that it appears that aren't met. In particular, C is a hard one. I'm having a hard time with that myself because your paragraph response in here doesn't really address the fact that the hardship is not self-imposed, and I wonder if you had anything to add that might be convincing.
I unfortunately cannot add to that. I only became involved in the project as of January this year. I'm physically responsible for the current as-built, and I can really only answer questions as to the existing conditions.
So it appears that the hardship is self-imposed then, and there doesn't seem to be any rebuttal at all to refute that.
I cannot give that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other board member have a question for this applicant or applicant's representative? Seeing none, are there any questions of the applicant by staff?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify in this case? Case 2023-0042? Nope.
Gwen. No, your time will be later. Your time will be later. I'll appoint you.
Anyone at all? Seeing none, does the staff have any rebuttal? Nothing to rebut.
No, Madam Chair.
Does the applicant have anything further? Nope, he indicates not. So we'll close the public hearing, and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Hale.
I move in case 2023-0042 to approve a variance from AMC Table 21.10-6, Table of Dimensional Standards, Chugach Eagle River Residential Districts, to allow an existing single-family residence, 2-place hangar and accessory dwelling unit to encroach 6.5 feet into the front setback, 15 feet into the rear setback, and 3.9 feet into the side setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
Thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Quinn. Mr. Hale, would you speak to your motion, please?
Thank you, through the chair. I have to go with the staff on this one. I've read all of the packet. I've read the application from the petitioner, and I just, he chose to construct a building. I think that permits are a pretty common knowledge thing. Everybody in the community knows if you're going to put up a fence or you're going to construct something, you got to get a permit. And to not do it is a willful act, I think. And so in particular, condition C, the hardship is not self-imposed. It obviously is self-imposed if you make the determination that you're not going to get a permit and you're just going to start building and not hire professionals. That's on you. I don't know what else we could do as a board, but say that, I'm sorry, you should have got a professional and a permit. So I can't support it.
Mr. Quinn?
I agree with Mr. Hale. Standard C is just a tough one to get around. So, yeah, I agree with his comments.
Any comments from any other board members? Any other discussion? I too cannot get past standard C and will not be supporting the motion. Are you ready for the question? Okay. The question is on the adoption of the motion to grant a variance to allow an existing single-family residence 2-place hangar and an accessory dwelling unit to encroach 6.5 feet into the front setback, 15 feet into the rear setback, 3.9 feet into the side setback, subject to conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Romerdahl, how do you vote?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 1 yes vote and 5 no votes. So the variance is denied. Moving on to the next case. The next case is 2023-0045. The petitioner is James Wojciechowski. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. Thank you. Will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Thank you, Chair. On May 15, 2023, a total of 106 public hearing notices were mailed in accordance with the procedures of AMC 2103020H. As of this writing, 2 comments in support of the variance request have been received, and no comments have been received from the Basher Community Council or JBEAR.
Are there any objections to the sufficiency of notice? Seeing and hearing none, will the staff please present this case?
Thank you, Chair. This is a request for a variance from AMC 2106020, Table 2106-1, Table of Dimensional Standards, to allow a shop and accessory dwelling unit, ADU, to encroach 40 feet within a 50-foot front setback. The applicant is proposing to build a detached shop with an accessory dwelling unit within the 50-foot front setback. The placement of the shop and ADU in this location is due to significant topographic challenges and lack of soil stability elsewhere on the property. The subject property is a legally non-conforming R10 low-density alpine slope parcel that is subject to dimensional requirements of the R6 low-density 1-acre district. Because of this, the front setback is 50 feet per the R6 standards rather than the 10-foot front setback standards of the R10 district. See attachment 5 for non-conforming details. Agency comments are included in attachment 3, and there have been no objections to the granting of this variance. In order to approve this variance, the application must meet the following standards. Standard A is met. There are exceptional physical circumstances on the property in form of slope, soil instability, and unique lot geometry which limits the development area of the lot. The topography on site is steeply sloping west, with the steepest slopes found along the eastern and western property boundaries, ranging from 12 to 32%. These slopes limit the area in which the accessory structures can safely be constructed. This parcel is affected by unique lot geometry due to its total area. The special limitations imposed on this parcel require a minimum lot area of 1.25 acres. See attachment 5 for more details. However, the subject parcel was subdivided prior to the parcel being rezoned from T transition district to the R10 SL and does not meet the minimum lot size of 1.25 acres. Because of this, the parcel is subject to more restrictive dimensional requirements of the R6 zoning district, which places a developmental constraint that would not otherwise be applied in the similar R10 zoning district properties. Standard B is met. As demonstrated in Standard A, the physical constraints in the form of slope, soil instability, and lot geometry, as well as development constraints posed from the installation of new on-site water and wastewater system. The proposed shop and ADU will increase the residential capacity of the subject parcel and will be placed within a location that would otherwise be allowed if the standard R10 setbacks could apply. Standard C is met. The hardship is not self-imposed. The subject parcel is a legally non-conforming R10 parcel and was subdivided in 1981 when the parcel was originally zoned T Transition District. The applicant did not construct the existing home, nor were they aware that the home was subject to the R6 dimensional standards during design of the shop and ADU. They did not have a choice to reorient the home in a manner that could accommodate construction in a manner that's consistent with R6 setback requirements. The applicant has chosen to place a shop and ADU in a location and orientation that would otherwise be compliant with R10 setbacks. Standard D is met. Given the character, history, and current zoning of the neighborhood, it does not appear that granting of this variance to encroach within the front setback will adversely affect the use of adjacent properties. 2 comments from neighbors in support are received. Standard E is met. The requested variance will not change the character of the R10 zoning district. Standard F is met. The approval of this variance will not adversely affect the health, safety, and welfare of the people within the municipality. The proposed and existing encroachments will not impact rights-of-way, utilities, stormwater drainage, groundwater, airspace, or pedestrian facilities. Standard G is met as it's not applicable to this variance request. Standard H is met. The existing single-family home does encroach 14.9 feet into a required 25-foot east side setback, but the encroachment is legally non-conforming. As such, this parcel is being used in accordance with the intent of the underlying R10 SL single-family zoning district. However, the addition of the accessory structures to enhance the function of a single-family home are commonly enjoyed within residential districts. The proposed addition of a shop and an ADU will be constructed in a manner that preserves design continuity with the principal structures and is reasonable size to ensure a comfortable living space for residents without adding excessive bulk to the property. AMC 2103-240G requires all 8 standards be substantially met in order for the variance to be granted. The department finds all 8 standards are met and recommends approval of the variance subject to conditions 1 and 2 on page 6 of this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff by the board? Okay. Are there any questions of staff by the applicant? So would the applicant please come forward? Do you have any questions of staff?
I do not.
So would you please state and spell your name for the record?
My name is James Wojciechowski, James, last name Wojciechowski.
Please present your case.
Okay. We've lived in Alaska for 31 years. First 8 of those years was in a bush community, Dillingham on the Bristol Bay. We came up here as traveling nurses way back in the day. We moved over to Anchorage in 2000 and have lived at the property we presently own. And that's up in Stuckagain Heights. We got really lucky. Didn't know what Stuckagain was, had no idea about it, and found a fixer-upper, which, believe me, needed a lot of work. We spent the last 23 years turning that house and property into our home, and we love it. We turned 70 this year. The house is a 3-story house with a walk-in basement, and we probably average between 15 and 25 flights of stairs a day. We're in good shape, but I'm also realistic. I can't do as hard a workout as I did 10 years ago, and I'm probably not going to be able to do, well, I may still be able to do 15 or 20 flights of stairs in 10 years, but who knows, right? So we came up with the idea of putting up a single-story property or a single-story building that would be an accessory dwelling unit, an ADU with a shop to put our truck camper in. And initially I went down to planning and zoning. I knew nothing about this process. I went down there to see if it's even feasible. I didn't know if you could put a second building up on a property up there. I learned that we were zoned R10SL, and I've learned what that means now, believe me. And initially told that we could build a building that would be, or the total sum of the square footage of the buildings, including decks above 30 inches, would have to be no greater than 10% of the square footage of the lot. That limited the size of the shop ADU quite a bit, but it was still doable. I mean, so we went ahead and, with the help of our designer, builder, went through the beginning process of submitting plans. At that point, the goalpost got moved, and we were told that, and it was good news, that we could deduct 10% of the square footage of the decks and add that back in. And that actually made the shop ADU footprint very usable. So we're happy, ready to go. Then the goalpost got moved again. And that's when the ugly word R6 came up. And we were then told by the folks at Planning and Zoning that the setback would have to be 50 foot from our south boundary, which is the road. It's not doable. So we were lucky enough to have a meeting with Sonnet Calhoun, Ryan Yell, and a third person, I can't remember his name or what he represented, outlined that whole process, and Sonnet was the one that recommended. Basically, I told her we're just going to abort the plan. I mean, we have no choice, right? And she recommended we apply for a variance. And it was felt at that time, and now I think bore out by the work of the person presenting, that we do meet the 8 standards. So I felt like it was worth a chance of putting in for that variance so we could build the building we want to build and have something comfortable to move into later in life when I don't want to go up and down those stairs anymore. And that's pretty much it, unless you have questions.
Are there any questions by the board for this applicant? Mr. Hale.
Through the chair, I'd just like to say thanks for starting the process. A lot of people don't do that. They just go, and then later they come back here after something's built. So we appreciate when people come, to the staff and ask them for help and learn about the process so that everybody understands what's before them and, what the good path is. So thank you.
Well, I'd like to, if I could add, I wasn't intending to throw anybody under the bus with that history. When we had the meeting with Sonnet, there were 2 books sitting on the table and they were this thick. So even if I did it for a living, I don't think I would know all these codes and rules and minutia, But we ended up with 3 different sets of plans for this thing at this point. Anyway.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you. Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify in this case? Case 2023-0045. Anybody at all? Okay. Does the staff have any rebuttal?
No, Chair.
Does the applicant, you have 6 more minutes. Anything else you want to say? Nope, indicates not. All right, then we'll close the public hearing and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Quinn.
I move in case 2023-0045 to approve a variance from AMC 21.06.020, Table 21.06-1, Table of Dimensional Standards, residential districts to allow a shop and accessory dwelling unit to encroach 40 feet within a 50-foot front setback, subject to the conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report.
And seconded by Mr. Flynn. Mr. Quinn, will you please speak to your motion?
Through the chair, I agree with all staff's points. I think it meets, I agree with their findings on everything. I think it meets the threshold for variance. It sounds like you guys didn't have the most pleasant experience, but at least your builder designer has a nice portfolio of ADU shops now for maybe some future people. I'll be supporting it. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Any other comments? Are you ready for the question?
Ms. Chair, the second needs to be spoken to.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Flynn, would you please speak to the motion?
I'll just be short. I also agree with staff recommendation and will be giving a positive vote. vote on this and encourage that as well. Thank you.
Sorry. Now, the question is on the adoption of the motion to grant a variance to allow a shop and accessory dwelling unit to encroach 40 feet within the 50-foot front yard setback, subject to conditions shown on page 6 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, and a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Romerdahl, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
So there are 6 yes votes, 0 no votes, and the variance is granted. You're welcome. I guess. Next case is case 2023-0047. Gwendolyn Hendrickson is the applicant. Will the staff please describe the notice given in this case?
Yes. There were 90 public hearing notices mailed on May 15th of this year, and there were no responses from the public and no comments from the Turnagain Community Council. The applicant provided a letter of support from the neighbor next to the side yard setback encroachment, so the nearest neighbor to the encroachment.
Are there any objections to the sufficiency of notice in this case? Seeing and hearing none, will the staff please present the case?
Yes, thank you. This is a request for a variance to allow a deck to encroach into a side setback from the property line in the R1A zoning district. The deck already has a certificate of nonconformity for a deck encroachment. The need for the variance arises from an enlargement of the stairway from the deck to the backyard. The increase of the encroachment of the stairway is roughly 40 square feet. The intensification of the deck encroachment from what is already legal under nonconforming rights was discovered by the MOA zoning review during a review of a new building permit for a structure addition on the other side of the house. Approval criteria A is met. The slope of the lot is a distinguishing physical condition of the land. This lot straddles a hill. Kissy Court runs along the south side of the lot at a lower elevation. The rear of the lot slopes downhill, and the Tony Knowles Coastal Trail crosses across the property because the lot is platted all the way out to the ocean, or to the inlet. So there's an easement across the back of the property. This is a long, narrow lot that slopes downhill in both the front and in the back. And in a little bit, I'll show you some aerial photos and things to sort of show how some of the houses are pushed very close to the front of the lot. This house and its nearest neighbor, because of some of the topography on the property. The lot also exceeds the 3-to-1 depth to width ratio required by the subdivision regulations. So if you were to subdivide property today, it wouldn't be legal to, without a subdivision variance granted, to plat a lot that is so skinny and so deep. It doesn't meet the 1/3 depth to width ratio required by our subdivision regulations. So standard A is met. Standard B is partially met. The R1A district requires a 5-foot side setback from the east and west property lines. Most of the deck on the west side of the lot is less than 30 inches from the ground and therefore is not considered encroaching. The deck enjoys nonconforming rights to encroach into the side setback, but sometime after 2007, the stairway from the deck to the backyard was altered. This technically increased the nonconformity. The setback does not create an undue hardship upon the property owner because there is space to have stairs without encroaching the setback. Note, the reoriented stairway is an improvement for egress from the house to the backyard. The existing house is located close to the front of the property line because of this sloping topography on the lot. Approval criteria C does not appear to be met. The neighborhood is affected by steep topography, but this lot has more slope than most in the neighborhood. Topography is a peculiarity of this lot and a hardship on the property owner. The encroachment is a result of a deck builder who did not check with the zoning regulations prior to reorienting the stairway from the deck to the backyard. The original deck enjoyed nonconforming rights, but this change to the stairway after 2007 caused the need for this side setback variance. Approval criteria D is met. There's no structure separation violations, no drainage issues. The nearest neighbor provided a letter of support. Approval criteria E, this is a dimensional variance. It's not for a use variance, which would be prohibited. It also does not change the character of the zoning district. Approval criteria F is met. There's no identified health safety issues with this property. The owner is just seeking relief to keep the deck that is already built in its current configuration in order to close out permit for home improvements that were done on the other side of the house. Approval criteria G is met. This is not related to ADA accessibility. However, I believe the stairway is probably widened from what it previously was, which is an improvement for egress. Approval criteria H is only partially met. The deck and the stairway only encroach approximately 40 square feet into the side setback. The amount of encroachment, it does not qualify for a minor amendment, sort of like an administrative variance, a minor modification, which is like an administrative variance granted by the planning director. But it is very small, considered de minimis. However, the encroachment is not necessary for reasonable use of the land. There's sufficient space to build a conforming stairway in the backyard. The deck builder moved the stairway closer to the side setback in order to take advantage of the lower topography and follow the hill, follow the natural grade of the ground, so that the stairway kind of, as I'll show in some of the photos, follows the grade versus sort of kind of stepping off the deck and being really steep. The department finds that approval criteria B, C, and H are not fully, those three are not substantially met and must recommend denial. It's subject to conditions 1 and 2 on page 5 of your packet. Conditions 1 and 2 are just standard conditions saying, you know, it's approved if the Zoning Board of Examiners and Appeals approves it, subject to the as-built on file. I'd like to just point out, I haven't been to this board for a while. There's 6 members present. It takes 5 positive votes to approve a motion. Just a heads up on the numbers for tonight. So if you turn to page 6, you'll see a zoning map. You see how skinny the lot is on page 6 of your packet. Pretty narrow and skinny. The aerial photo, although it may be sort of washed out in your packet, page 7 of your packet, it shows how this house and the house to the west are pushed very close to the front of the lot, and that's because of this topography thing that I keep bringing up. Turn to the next page, page 8. That is the subdivision plat. That's the existing plat of the property, and you can see I've drawn to where the petition site is, and then there's the coastal trail has a 50-foot wide trail easement on the north side. Page 9 is a grid map, so it's just like a whole bunch of subdivision plats put together into one drawing. And I pointed where the property is. Page 10 shows you the area of encroachment into the west side setback. So this picture, that's the encroachment. That's what you're looking at, page 10. And page 11, I sort of backed up a couple steps and took the photo. You can't tell from the photo, but it's quite steep, the hill in this spot. If you rolled a ball down there, it would roll really quickly, right? And you can see how the stairway sort of took the existing deck that was already there and kind of followed the grade of the ground, natural grade of the ground as much as possible. I threw a tape measure on there, and so anything below 30 inches in height is legal. You can build right up to the property line. So this one is about a foot taller than it's allowed to be by right? So that's page 12 of your packet. It's about 41, 41 and a half, or 40 and a half, 40 inches and 1/2 in height from grade, and that's about 12 inches more than it's allowed to be. I stood on the top of the deck and took a picture down. That's page 13. So that's from the deck looking at the stairway, from the top of the stairway, right? Let's see here. There's a topography map. It's not a real great one, but there's a topo map on page 20 of your packet, and you can see how the lines sort of group together, close to the road, Kissy Court. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out pages 22 and 38. Yeah, okay, so your very last page. So at the back of your packet is the non-conforming rights letter, the grandfather rights letter that was done in 2007 for Gwen. And so on the very back of your packet, page 38, those lines there, near what is called Chilligan Drive on this drawing, that's the deck. And so if you sort of flip back and forth animation style between page 38 and page 22, and you look at the two decks and you see that the change between one deck to the other is very small. And most of that change is still at grade and doesn't count as an increase in the encroachment. The only place where I find encroachment is sort of the close-up dock detail showing how the stairway has changed. And I think what they did was sort of move the stairway closer to the lot line when they were making, regular maintenance and improvement, rebuilding the deck to make it safer and follow the natural grade of the property. That's my assessment of it. Thanks for your patience. Gwen took some beautiful photos of this deck on pages 23, 24, and 25, and 26. Those are pictures of other parts of the deck, so show how nice it is. It's a special sort of a choice lot because their views of Cook Inlet are, awesome. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions, Mr. McLaughlin, on the board?
Through the chair.
Quinn.
Sorry. Through the chair, just a general comment. That was a very informative presentation and helped describe things well. That's all.
Anybody else? Will the applicant please come forward?
One. There it is.
There you go. You did it.
Okay. Hello, my name is Gwen Hendrickson, and I live at 2240
could you
Kissy Court.
Spell your last name, please,
There?
and then spell your last name.
Sorry.
It's okay.
We hear you fine.
Okay.
She just wants you to spell your last name.
Oh, okay. I don't hear you very well. Hendrickson is Hendrickson.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of staff?
I don't hear you.
Do you have any questions for staff?
Do I have what?
Questions?
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay. So then,
I guess I just have to tell you that do I just give my speech at this
Yes.
point? Okay. I'd like to thank you very much for hearing this testimony. And I'm applying for variance on Lot 1A, Telequana Heights, you want me to spell Telequana, or
No,
you got it?
that's fine.
The deck that was in place when I bought the house was in need of repair, and the many levels of the deck and the steep stairs to the backyard posed a severe and safety and hazard problem. I hired P&S Structural Engineering in 2019 to design a safe and structurally sound deck. And I have just recently learned, while applying for a permit to build a deck on the northeast side of my home, that the deck has not been in compliance. This deck is the only safe way to the backyard. I would greatly appreciate the zoning board and the commissioner to grant the variance. And I don't know if you have any questions for me.
Are there any questions by the board for Ms. Hendrickson? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
You have 8 minutes and 45 seconds left for rebuttal. And as there is no one in the audience, I can dispense with that part, and we don't have anyone that's going to phone in for, okay. Does the staff have any rebuttal?
No, thank you.
And Ms. Hendrickson, do you have anything further? Thank you. Then the public hearing is closed and the matter rests with the board. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Smythe. Would you state your motion, please?
I move in case 2023-0047 to approve the variance from AMC Table 21.06-1, Table Dimensional Standards, residential districts to allow deck encroachment into the side setback of the R1A district, subject to the conditions shown on page 5 of the staff report.
Thank you. Seconded by Mr. Hale. Mr. Smythe, would you speak to your motion?
Sure, through the chair, I do intend to support the motion. I believe all standards have been met. I'm going to speak to C specifically with the deck encroachment. I think the unique properties of the lot and the steepness for safety reasons do warrant the variance, and as repeated in the staff finding, it is de minimis at most. I think this is the reason for the variance process, and I intend to support it again. That's all.
Mr. Hale.
Thank you, through the chair. I'll add that on condition C, the petitioner hired a professional that should be trusted to understand this a lot better than most homeowners. So, I mean, she did the right thing, and so I think that the hardship is not self-imposed by the petitioner, because she did everything she could to do things right, and it was a professional that failed her. So I think C has been met.
Any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? The question is on the adoption of a motion to grant a variance to allow a deck encroachment into the side setback of the R1A district, subject to conditions shown on page 5 of the staff report. A yes vote will grant the variance, a no vote will deny the variance. Please vote.
Mr. Romerdahl, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, there are 6 votes in the affirmative and 0 votes in the negative. The variance is granted. Okay, that's the end of the public hearing portion of the agenda. No reports to report. And any comments by the board members? Okay. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So what happens now? Do I get a new, what do I get?
Mr. Flint, seconded by Mr. Smythe. We are adjourned.